All right, everybody. So this is the new rater orientation. Just a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. First, we're going to talk about just some of the basics of the program because our program is a little bit unique. Second is some of the course rating basics. So we're going to give you kind of an introductory crash course of stuff that you'll really want to know before you show up for a training rate at some point in the future. And then third, we're going to go forward and we're going to talk about what do we need you guys to do over the next coming weeks to get ready for the season. And as I've already said, if you have any questions during today's presentation, just enter them in the chat and we will answer those as we can. So next, we're going to talk a little about our program that we have. So first, some introductions real quick. I already introduced myself, but for those of you who came in a little bit late, I'm Hunter Cook and I'm the course rating and golf services coordinator with the Golf Association of Michigan. And on the call today, I know that some of you have been introduced in previous meetings, but we have Kyle Wolf, who's our director of member services, and then Theo, who is kind of transitioning out of doing a lot of course rating stuff. But he'll still be involved in our member services department, which kind of helps run the course rating system. Kyle and Theo, did you want to hop on and say anything?
I'll start. Thanks for having me. Welcome, everybody. It's an exciting time where we can start to prepare for the season coming up. We're happy to have any new or returning course raters on this call, and just excited to kind of get ready for the spring here and sharpen our skills, and happy to be on this call with everyone. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'll just echo what Theo said. Welcome to everyone. We're excited to have you as part of our team this year. And if you do have any questions, like Hunter said, let us know in the chat or afterwards. We'd be happy to answer them, and just looking forward to having you as part of the team this year.
All right, thanks, guys. So next item of business, we just want to kind of real quickly go over what is course rating, because this is one of the common questions that we get. So basically, the biggest thing to know is that course rating is by default an evaluation of difficulty. It's not an evaluation of quality. So sometimes, a lot of times when you talk to individuals out in the field, they'll think that we are evaluating quality. We are not. We are evaluating difficulty for the purposes of the rules of handicapping under the World Handicap System. So next, we just real quickly want to go into how do you sign up for rates. I know a lot of you have already went through this process because you obviously signed up in the GAM portal. But if you log into gam.org and go to the course rating volunteers section, and then there'll be this drop-down menu that says event schedule register. And then you can check the rating information by hitting the little magnifying glass. So when you're signing up for rates, if you hit that, it'll tell you all the information you need to know, what time you're starting, whatever. And then you can click the little sign up button. Then you'll get this pop-up window that'll come up. The biggest thing with the comments, normally what we ask you to do is just to type in your experience level. So for a lot of you, you'll say trainee, and that'll at least give us some information on how many trainees there are and what we need to do to prepare for that. So next is the time commitment that comes with this. So you will be able to, as you want, schedule yourself for as many or as few number of rates. We've generally found that 6 rates is right about the number that you'll want to sign up for to grow your proficiency. Once you become a rater, if you do a few less or a few more, it's not really going to impact it significantly. But our goal is really to get you to do 6, just to get you there. And then obviously arriving on time is very important. And there's a brief kind of a usual schedule that we follow. And so it always is rate and then lunch, and then golf. So it's kind of a full day commitment. If you need to leave early, you can. But obviously playing is also part of the rating process as it's found in the guide and the manual within the course rating system. So it is a important part of the process. So another thing you'll see is when you go into the portal, if you search back, obviously this year's schedule has not been added yet, but you'll see two very different types. There's measuring and there's course rating. So when we first show up at the golf course, we do measuring. Basically, it's a data collection day. And then the second day second time we arrive at the golf course, it's a course rating day. So when you're a trainee, you're generally going to start and really focus on being a trainee for the ones that specifically say course rating. And you can see that right in the open screen of the portal. You'll be able to see, it'll say schedule type, and they'll either say measuring or course rating. So you're going to want to, as you train, you're going to want to look for the ones that say course rating, because that really is going to give you the important knowledge to go forward. And then as you progress through the program, you may get involved in measuring and whatnot as that progression kind of goes on. So basically, it's important also to know what each team does. So the first thing is the measuring team does about 6 different things that are really important and make rating so much easier. So first, they evaluate tee locations, basically where is each tee based at, and then measuring the lengths of the hole, measuring your elevation, your green, your crossings, and your greenside bunker characteristics. All of that basically sets the rating team up for success. And the rating team does these 6 things. So basically, it evaluates any adjustments to length, and collect your missing data, evaluate your 10 obstacles, which we will talk a lot about in the upcoming slides. You'll record your table values, apply your adjustments, and then go to your final obstacles. So basically, your measuring team collects a lot of data to make rating relatively doable, because if we did everything on one day, it would be a lot of numbers, and it would be very difficult to get all that done in one day. So next we're going to go into a couple more practical pieces that go with course rating. So the first one is, what do I need to bring? So the first thing is, obviously you need to wear the apparel that the GAM requires you to. So in the portal, you'll see that there's a link to purchase a GAM polo shirt, a golf shirt that you will wear when you come to course ratings. Normally we wear khaki pants or shorts and a khaki hat as well. And there are some other options in that particular link to look at apparel that matches the uniform as well. The second is bring your course rating guide. We're going to talk a little bit later about how to purchase those. But it is obviously important to bring your guide, because if you don't have your guide, you really aren't able to rate. Third is a pencil or pencils, because you need to be able to write, and we'll talk a little later about why pencils are so important. Fourth is a rangefinder. Everyone is really going to need to have a rangefinder. It's kind of the basic tool that we use out on the course to measure. And then the fifth is either a GPS unit or your cell phone. If you have a golf GPS unit, it's extremely helpful. Just to know, it's basically to know what position you are on the hole, because obviously a rangefinder, you can shoot some things to know where you are on the hole, but having a GPS unit or just using a free cell phone app will make it a lot easier to know your position on the hole, so you know where you need to be to measure certain things. And then just some things to have on hand. Obviously, in Michigan, we get weather that is not so friendly. So you're going to want to have gear for rain and cold. Also, what comes with that is sunscreen and mosquito repellent, because we obviously have those in Michigan. And then also, you're going to want your golf clubs, because we are going to play afterwards. And then there's always these 3 add-ons that no one necessarily talks about that are extremely helpful to have. The first one is a lanyard to go around your neck. It's really nice. You can clip your GPS onto it. You can clip your rangefinder onto it, just so that it's always readily accessible. I know when I first started doing ratings, having everything stuck in my pockets wasn't necessarily the best option. And a lanyard really helps make sure that you don't have to have, your pockets loaded full of stuff. The second is binder clips. The reason for this is instead of bringing a separate clipboard, some people prefer to use binder clips to clip their sheet that they'll write all their information down, called a Form 1, onto the front of their course rating guide. Basically, it makes it into a 2-for-1 thing, so you can just have it straight on your guide, and then you can use that to write on. And then the third is a 2.5-gallon plastic bag. And I know this one might be a weird one, but when it rains, your Form 1 will get wet. And really the best way that we've found to make sure that your sheet does not get too wet to where you can't write on it is to use a plastic bag over the top, just so then you can write underneath it. So then what does course rating require from you? Just a couple traits. The first one is learning and knowledge. There's going to be a little bit of a learning curve to this, and you're going to need to learn some things to be effective. The second, obviously, is your dedication, both with learning and then also with when you go to rates. Not all rates are right next door to your house, and I know that that's something that a lot of raters will travel significantly to go to a number of rates. The third is communication. You're going to have to communicate with members of your team out there and with your captains. Obviously, collaboration, because this is kind of a team activity, and then teamwork. So then we just have a couple expectations that we have. So basically, because we are kind of the face of the GAM out to our member clubs and to the players who may see us at the club, we have these kind of minimum standards. So the first one is obviously to have fun. Rating is a relatively fun experience. And we want you to be excited when you go out there and kind of be a positive influence out there as well. The second is to be a GAM member. Only active GAM members are able to participate, just because obviously we want you to be part of the organization in order to be a volunteer and be a representative of the organization. The third is to wear your GAM apparel and uniform. The fourth is to study and learn, because obviously, just like I said before, this is sort of a learning curve, and we want you to be learning and studying the materials as well. The fifth is to post your scores when you play. It's an important part of handicapping, and really to be a good steward of the handicapping system is to make sure you are posting your scores as soon after you get done playing as possible. The sixth is to provide feedback to the office and captains, whether that is feedback about the course, feedback about the system, whatever, just so that we are able to kind of take that into account as well. And then seventh is to be eyes and boots on the ground. And this is one of the really big things about us whenever we are out playing, is to be looking for things that would maybe make the course rating system confusing or the handicapping system confusing for regular golfers. So for example, if we go rate a course 5 years ago and they have the tee colors are blue, white, and red, and we rate them and put them in the system, and then you go show up to the course and they've now changed the tee colors to be, gold, black, and white, players who show up to the course aren't necessarily going to know how to post that score. And by giving us the information, we can contact the course and make sure that the information in the database is accurate. So next, we're going to click into the basics of the course rating system. And so, as we promised at the session last week, we are going to play the course rating overview video.
No two golf courses play the same. A score of 87 on a difficult course might be a better performance than a score of 85 on an easy one. It's not just courses that differ. Each player will perform differently, even on the same course. The scratch player, a golfer with a 0 handicap index, will have a different experience from the bogey player, a golfer with a handicap index of around 20 to 24. Playing a round of golf on the same course at the same time in normal conditions, the bogey player will find more challenges with distance, accuracy, and dealing with obstacles. Course ratings and slope ratings allow the handicap system to reflect this as part of the conversion of a player's handicap index into a playing handicap, so that golfers of differing abilities can have a fair and enjoyable game. Course ratings reflect the playing difficulty under normal conditions for the scratch player. Slope ratings represent the difference in playing difficulty for all players compared to the scratch player. Being a fundamental part of the handicap system, course ratings are carried out methodically by qualified teams, trained by authorized associations. Ratings are based on normal course and weather conditions, with each hole being evaluated for effective playing length and obstacles. The effective length includes factors such as elevation, roll, wind, and altitude. Obstacles include factors such as trees, fairway width, penalty areas, recoverability from rough, and green size. All these factors are assessed separately for both the scratch and bogey player. Once the evaluation process has been completed, the course rating and slope rating is calculated for each set of tees. When it comes to playing a round of golf, course ratings and slope ratings should normally be available on a lookup chart or through an app, which can be used to determine your handicap and how many strokes you'll receive. In bringing together a course rating system that is already in use in many parts of the world, with a consistent method of calculating handicaps, the World Handicap System provides a handicap index which is truly portable, whoever you are, whatever your ability, and wherever you are playing in the world, enabling you to match your skills against other players of differing abilities and making the game even more enjoyable.
All right, so that is just a brief overview from the World Handicap System of course rating. And so basically we rate courses, as we said earlier, to establish an evaluation of difficulties. Now, the reason that we always have so many rates is because courses require a re-rate every 10 years, unless there is obviously a couple different things that come into play, such as new courses, renovations, and permanent changes. So we rate we rate during the active posting season, which in Michigan is April 1st to October 31st. There's an active posting season, if you did not already know this, just because reflection of ability, you need obviously good weather and the course to be in good condition to actually get a fair evaluation. And obviously, if you right now are tuning in from a state in a warm weather climate, because active seasons go year round, you may be able to post as you play today. But why do we rate in the active posting season? Well, the first is because we're required to evaluate courses based on mid-season conditioning. And then second, it's because conditions in Michigan in many years will prohibit us from estimating mid-season conditioning in the active outside of the active season, which is why we stick to that April 1st to October 31st timeframe. So something that is common when you read your guide, when you get it, or if you've already gotten it, is that there are a lot of differences, and there are objective and fact-based measurements that you'll see throughout the book. And then there's some subjective assessments that will be required as well. But the book is a really strong guide to get it, and really that's why the guide is so important to A, study, but also B, have with you on the golf course. And then also there's a little picture of here from a different association that kind of talks about green meetings. And so I know on the face of it, sometimes assigning subjective values can be kind of intimidating, but green meetings are where we're able to have the entire team come together on the end of each hole and talk about some of those potential disagreements, and find a consensus. So when you're out there rating, you'll be rating 2 players. You'll be rating a scratch player and the bogey player. So basically, you will either have a men or a women's rate for a particular set of tees, and you'll evaluate the conditions for the scratch and the bogey player, both on your same Form 1. So these 2 players, obviously for each gender, have a very different set of criteria that we go by. All this information is in the guide that you'll be receiving. But there are many different, so scratch players obviously have, as the video said, have a handicap of 0.0. And then bogey player is kind of based for men on 20 and women on 24. And those are the criteria. So when you're out rating on the course, when you look at shot specific things, when you're trying to calculate where a player hits the ball to evaluate, you'll be using these measurements. So then we have a sample Form 1 here, just to kind of get you orientated. So this is what your Form 1 will look like when you show up to the golf course to rate for the first time. And on each hole, as you can see, there's columns for holes. This is basically what a sample hole will look like. Your scratch player data will go in the left column of that particular hole, and the bogey player data will go in the right column of that particular hole. The bolded rows that go across, so topography, fairway, whatever, is where you will put your final obstacle values. So everything kind of on top of that is to collect the data, and then in the bolded row is where you actually put your obstacle values. So here's 3 important warnings. So the first is use pencil, because you're gonna make mistakes out there and you're gonna want to be able to erase. The second is to write clearly. If we can't read your writing, we're probably going to ask you a bunch of annoying questions about what a particular number is. So please write as clearly as you possibly can. And the third is to take a photo. If we have a question, I know this is something that one particular captain recommended to me. When you're completed with your Form 1, take a photo of your sheet, simply so that if us as the staff or your captain has questions after the round, if they say on hole 5, what was your rough and recoverability and rough value, you can look at your sheet and go, oh, that was a 5, not a 6. And then you at least have something to reference back to. So as we talked about in the last one, there are 10 different obstacles that the course rating system has that you will, and 8 of those will be standardly evaluated for all on all sheets. So under each obstacle, there are evaluations that are found in the guide, and in the guide you can look up in the tables, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute, to find the values and then apply the adjustments that are listed underneath. So there's 10 obstacles, and we're going to go over those really quickly. So there are 8 obstacles that will be recorded on all sheets. The green surface, you'll be told if you need to record the green surface. And then the psychological, no one records on their sheet because the computer automatically tabulates that information for us. So the first is topography, which is obviously the lay of the land. The fairway, which is the difficulty of keeping the ball in the fairway. The green target, how hard is it to hit the green? Recoverability and rough, if you miss the green or the fairway, how difficult is it going to be to recover? Bunkers, if you hit it in the bunker, how troublesome is that going to be? Crossing obstacles are any penalty area or whatever that you have to actually cross and carry across. Ladder obstacles are anything on the side or behind the green. Trees, obviously pretty self-explanatory. And then green surface is how difficult is it once you get to the green to get the ball in the hole. And then psychological is the cumulative effect of obstacles on the player score. So just some relative obstacle facts. I think the most important to know is that if an obstacle exists, on the hole, so it exists within 50 yards of the line of play. It has to be rated at least a 1. And obstacles cannot be rated a 0. There's some of these. So for example, green surface, it has to be a 3 or greater. Green target, it has to be a 2 or greater. Those are just some rough examples of that. So the next is, I just want to real quickly discover, how do we find a table value? So all table values are basically based off of 2 different variables. The first is the first will be in the columns, the second will be in the rows. So for example, with fairway, if you had a 360-yard hole for men, you'd be in this row. And if the fairway was 33 yards wide, you would have this number right here, which is a 3. Something to note is that on the top of these tables, a lot of times is where you will find the minimum rating value. And then another thing to note is you'll see in the fairway example, it'll say par 4 and par 5 holes. That does not mean the par that's actually on the scorecard. It means the par of the course rating system. So for example, if it says par 4, that means that the scratch player would reach the green in 2 shots, or would have the distance to reach the green in 2 shots for it to be considered a par 4 hole. And that will come to you a lot more as you actually rate and watch the shots of your players as you go down the hole. It'll kind of become self-explanatory in that way. So on some obstacles, like for example, crossing obstacles, there are 2 different tables that'll be here. The blue table is for men, and the yellow table is for women. And then you'll also have scratch on the left and bogey on the right. And that's generally how all these tables are kind of broken apart. So there's also some other important shorthand stuff, and this you're really going to get from studying the guide. There are adjustment codes that will be found underneath. So these all have a digit or a letter that is used as a code. And so there will be a description of what qualifies for that particular adjustment. So for example, a bounce adjustment can be applied as a positive or as a negative value. So a B+ would be, for example, if something was making it more difficult. For example, if there's a cart path directly alongside a letter or penalty area, it means that you will, if you hit just off of the lateral penalty area, you would hit the cart path, and because it would bounce off the cart path, it makes the penalty area effectively bigger. On the alternative, you could have a B- if there's a tree in front of the penalty area, and the tree would likely block the ball from getting to the penalty area, you may apply a B-. It just all depends on the particular situation. And then there's also player differences. So there's a lot of shorthand differences that you'll see. For example, for distance, a lot of times it'll be written like this, and this would be read as 250 yards for men and 210 yards for women. So this is an example of what a scratch player would hit on their tee shot. So the 250, the one without brackets, will be for the male player, and the one in the brackets would be for the female player. In table values, sometimes you'll see parentheses on occasion. This particularly is with green surface, but the one without the parentheses is going to be for your scratch player, and the one in the parentheses is going to be for your bogey player. So we're going to test this out, and I want everybody, we're not necessarily going to share answers, but I want to kind of go through some examples just so that you have the opportunity to see how these tables work and kind of apply it maybe for the first time. So real quickly, we're just going to spend a couple of minutes on these because I want to make sure we keep this moving. But for the first example, male players have a shot of 165 yards. There's a penalty area 27 yards to the right, and there is a wide paved cart path that runs between the green's edge and the penalty area, which qualifies for a B+. So I'm not asking you to make subjective decisions right now. I'm just going to say that there's a B+. So we're going to go through how do we find the obstacle values for the lateral obstacles for both the scratch and the bogey male player. So the first thing you'll identify when you get over here to the obstacle rating is you'll see the scratch on the left, the bogey on the right, and then these are the distance of the particular shot. So as you'll see, because scratch players hit it far straighter than the bogey player does, and their distribution is far tighter for the scratch player, you'll see that the distance is larger than the distance is for the bogey player. So in this case, it's 165 yards. So if we take 165 yards in the scratch, we'll be in this 160 to 189. And then we'll go over to what 27 would fit into, which is between 20 and 29. And we get a table value of 3. Then we look at it for the bogey player. So we go 165, that puts us in this 160 to 180. We go over to where 27 would fall, and we get a table value of 4. And then these aren't necessarily our final values, because as I put in this third piece, there is a B adjustment. So anytime you just see the plus, if there's a single plus here, that means that you're just adding 1 point. On some variables or on some adjustments, you could have more than 1 plus or more than 1 minus. But for this case, keep it simple. There's a single plus. So there's the B plus adjustment. And so that means that our final value is going to be recorded as 4 on the left, because that's our scratch. 3 plus 1 equals 4. And then 5 on the right for our bogey. 4 plus 1 equals 5. So now we're going to do it again, just with a different, and this time you can see that we have a yellow table, which means that this is a women only table. So female players are playing a 1-shot hole with a green target value of 4 for the scratch and 6 for the bogey. We see scratch and bogey again, just like on the other table. Something to note about rough in Michigan, really we only deal with what's called cool season rough, which means you basically are going to, in Michigan, you're going to disregard the stuff in the brackets. You're only going to take into account the stuff on the top. And in Michigan, the course cuts their rough to 2.5 inches. So what you'll notice, especially with recoverability in rough, we'll see that this says up to 2.5. This says greater than 2.5. So we're still going to be in this column right here. And then significant mounds surround the green, and it results in an M plus, so a mound plus adjustment. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the scratch player, scratch green target of 4. We're going to go over to our rough value, and that's going to be a 4. We're then going to go to bogey, and we're going to see 6, so 6 or 7. We're going to cut over here to the 2 to 2.5, and we're going to get a value of 6. And now, just like we did on the other, we're going to see this M plus here. So we're going to add 1 point. So 4 plus 1 is 5 for our scratch. 6 plus 1 is 7 for our bogey. So as you get your, and this is something I'm hoping to do as we go throughout the rest of the winter, especially for our new raters, is I'd like to have occasionally send out some, maybe some practice problems, just so you guys have the ability to go in and kind of practice finding table values and applying adjustments and whatnot throughout the off season, so that you're kind of comfortable. So when you get to the course and we say, you know, this is how we find our table value and this is how we apply our adjustment, you're like, oh, I kind of remember that from the book, which will make your training experience that much easier. So basically now we need to talk kind of about, you know, what does course rating mean in the greater perspective of golf. So when course rating, as we talked about in the video, you get 3 results. You get a course rating, which is the indication of difficulty for a scratch player. So after we take all the information and we put it in the computer, it gives us a number, and that is what is the course rating for the scratch player. And then there's a bogey rating, which is the indication of the difficulty for the bogey player. And then the slope rating, which is a relative difficulty, and you're basically relating the course rating and the bogey rating to one another. And that's what creates the slope rating. So on a lot of courses, you'll just see a course rating and a slope rating, but there's also this kind of intermediate step that's kind of in the background. So for example, if you go to the course rating and slope database, excuse me, you'll find all three values. So here's an example of Fazio Premier at Treetops. And so you'll see the course rating values are all listed here. The bogey rating values are all listed here in the blue box. And then the slope rating values are all listed in the green box. When you go to the course, you'll also see it applied on the scorecard a lot of times. So what you'll see here is you'll see that the course rating normally comes first in that, and then the slope rating comes behind that. And that's the 3-digit number, or the larger number. The smaller number is generally the course rating. And that. So we have how does this also impact handicapping? So the biggest thing to know is that once your course rating information is published, that's going to impact players over the course of the next 10 years. And these values are used both for tournaments or net tournaments and league play. They're used to establish our stroke index allocations. It creates pace of play recommendations. And then our data can also help establish if certain courses need to, or we would maybe recommend, or courses would come to us with asking for help with combo and hybrid tees with the measuring data. So lastly, this is a question that kind of came up last time at our season preview meeting, but what tees do we rate? So you'll see that for Fazio Premier at Treetops, this is a relatively newer rating. So you'll see that there's a lot more options kind of what we do now. So you'll see that all tees are rated for men all the way from the back, all the way to the front. And then that all tees up to 6,500 yards are rated for women. So this is kind of a new number that we got from the USGA and the World Handicap System to kind of go off of. Now, when as you'll see in the guide later, is that we don't necessarily have to human rate, which means actually have an individual person rate every single one of these tees. There's certain numbers. So for example, for men, any tee that's longer than 7,000 yards, we can have the computer rate that for us with the other information that we input. For example, for women, if it's higher than 6,000 yards, we can have the computer rate it for us too. So just because we necessarily, like, for example, in this particular case, there is, 5 tees for men, 5 whole tees, not including the combo tees, 5 tees rated for men, and 3 tees rated for women. That doesn't necessarily mean that because we have 2 people on each 9, that 16 people were necessarily required to do that, or are required to do a course such as this. And that'll obviously vary on how many computer rates we do compared to how close you are to that number and whatnot. But this is kind of how we gather how many individuals we need at each rate. So this is the new standard, but also it's because players need to be able to post scores from no matter what tee they play from. And that's been something that the USGA and the World Handicap System have really tried to integrate, especially for example, you may have, older men or junior men. So you may have, 11-year-old boy or a 85-year-old senior guy that wants to play from the red tees. And previously, some courses would not have a rating there, and we are really emphasizing doing that. And some courses that you play at may not have the ratings in this kind of thing, but as we continue to re-rate, more courses will become compliant with these standards in the upcoming years. So then just a couple friendly reminders to go kind of as a caveat at the end of this. So the first is, if you don't know something while on the course, ask other raters. Other raters are certainly friendly and highly knowledgeable about what they're doing out there. So if you don't know something, just ask them a question and they'll probably be able to answer it. 2, don't assign your final values until you review all your possible adjustments. So don't continually write in the final column your final obstacle values until you have taken down all the data and considered it. And then 3, kind of something that goes with that, is make sure that you are at the green for the green meetings. Also to talk over the hole, to calibrate, and to ask questions. So for example, something that often is talked about at green meetings is the tree value, because evaluating trees is somewhat subjective. There's guidelines in the system and in the guidebook, but it's still somewhat subjective. So when we get to the green, almost at every single hole that you'll rate across the state of Michigan, at the green meeting on every single hole, we're going to talk about trees, because we want to make sure that everyone on that particular hole is at least within, you know, a very small difference on their tree value for those particular holes. And obviously different tees are going to have different tree values sometimes because of different obstacles and different angles, especially sometimes on par 3s. There's a lot of different angles which change how trees are calculated. But there will be differences, but green meetings are great because you can calibrate all your data, but also you can talk over any questions that you have throughout the hole as well. And then 4th, this is really kind of the biggest piece of this, is when you're out there, avoid bias. You're not rating how you would play the hole or how your own game is. You're evaluating what is the scratch player and the bogey player going to do on this hole, given the information that you've been given in the guide. So for example, something that you'll come to find out is that scratch players and bogey players, they always hit straight shots. Players in the course rating system cannot curve the ball, they can't whatever. So you have to rate as if they're hitting a perfectly straight shot. And so that's an example. You may look at it and say, well, I would just curve the ball around a tree or whatever, but the rater or the rating players can't do that. And so you have to try to avoid bias as much as possible and consider how that particular player, as defined in the course rating system, is going to play the hole. So then what is next? So this is the 3rd part. So the first thing that you'll notice is, if you have not already, and a lot of you have, go into the COURSERATING volunteer page to purchase a book. They're going to be $24, and you can find them if you go into COURSERATING volunteer right here on the home page. You'll see that there's a link right under the video we just watched that says purchase WHS course rating system TM guide, and you click on that, it'll take you to a Golf Genius link. You can go in and you can just pay for everything right there, and we'll get that shipped out. And then obviously books are required, and you'll also see, while I have this screenshot up, just as I noted before, right underneath that link, there's a link that says purchase GAM course rating clothing. Go in there, click on that link, and you'll be able to look at the course rating apparel database and see all the options that you'll have there. The second is going to be to read and study. So if you look at the COURSERATING volunteer page, you'll see that there's some past training and resources there. The second is going to be to read through your guide once you receive it. I know that I've read through mine probably a lot of times, uncountable number of times. And you'll continue, as you continually read through the guide, you'll pick up new things. The third is to attend on-course training events possible. So if you're able to come to on-course training events, as those kind of come out as we get closer and closer to the season, make sure that if you're able to attend those, please do. Also training when you're on the course, kind of shadowing as well. When you sign up for particular rates that are actually active rates, that's super important too, because getting on course, once you have the knowledge and you've already studied the knowledge, getting on course is really where you're going to refine and further understand the course rating system. And then continue to attend your training events. I'm hoping that I'll be able to have at least a couple more live training sessions. If you guys are interested in that, as we go towards the winter and late winter and early spring, I hope to have some more of those, kind of similar to this, but we'll go more and talk about some of the other things in the book. If you want to have short on-demand training sessions, if you have questions or whatever about content, get a hold of me and we can try to schedule that. And then our weekly course rater discussions are Thursdays at 10 o'clock through March 31st. They're at the exact same link that you used today. But also please be advised that these discussions are geared more towards advanced raters. So there's going to be some discussions and topics that may not exactly make sense. If you have not been on rates before and you haven't really done a lot of rating, because these are going to be a lot of conversations about particular situations that may come up and whatnot. So we're going to have those. You're more than welcome to listen in. But just know that these discussions are going to be more at an advanced level with a lot of our returning raters. Third is just to stay informed. So we're going to continue to send updates throughout the winter months. And then our schedule will start to come together in the next little bit. And then just make sure you check your email, because email is where we send almost everything that we got for you. So with that, we'll take any further questions. If you want to add those into the chat, we can answer those. And then here's my contact information in case you need to get a hold of me. So make sure that you have that information, because that'll be helpful, to find me in the future. And you can call or email, and I'll be sure to get with you whenever I'm able to. So I'm going to stop my screen sharing here. And if there's any more questions.
Hey, Hunter, it looks like there are a couple questions that came in on the chat
Right.
that I wasn't able to get to. I guess I'll just go through, I'll just read them through really quick, just in case people didn't see the chat. There was a question about rangefinder, if it needs to measure slope. It does not need to measure slope. If you have one that does, that's great. Usually there's someone on the team that has one that does measure slope. So it's helpful to get with that person if we need to measure slope for topography purposes, but it really doesn't come up that often, so not required. There was a question about the shirt color. Whatever options are on our website are acceptable. I think we have 2 or 3. I can't remember the exact colors, but I know there's multiple options on there. There was talk about what app we should use for GPS. There are a lot out there, but we'd recommend using the GIN app, which comes with your GAM membership that you use to post your scores as well. They've got GPS in there. And I know a lot of our raters started using that when that became available last August. There was a question about how does playing the course impact rating. So when we play the course, really what we're looking for is just things that we might have missed. Maybe we completely didn't notice something that was left of the green, or we missed a fairway bunker on a hole because it was kind of hidden or something like that. So we're looking for those types of things. Conditions, in terms of the actual conditions of the course, there was mention about a golf course being soggy and not being mowed. We're evaluating the course for mid-season conditions. So when we go to courses towards the end of the year, whether it's October or even the beginning of the year, we're imagining or telling ourselves that this is normal July, where we might not see these things, or there's going to be more leaves on trees. Another example, we did Warren Valley in Dearborn Heights, and if any of you know that course, it sits in a floodplain. So we were there like when it was raining like crazy. We had to reschedule it 3 times because of flooding. So we don't take the current condition in effect, because we're rating the golf course for a 10-year period. So unless the course tells us yes, it's always flooded and it's always hard pan. We just assume that in a 10-year cycle, it's going to be normal conditions. And then there was a question about what days of the week are ratings. It's Monday through Friday. It really varies based on location. We leave that up to the golf course. So, a lot of places, Friday mornings are popular. We see that a lot in like Macomb County. But we also see like Wednesdays being popular in like the Kalamazoo area or things like that. So it really just depends on the golf course and what their schedule is. But we do it Monday to Friday. And then in terms of rangefinders, it's a good question. There's not a specific one that we recommend. We have had a relationship with Bushnell in the past. So before you purchase one, hold off, and we're still determining if we're going to continue that relationship. But if we do, we'll be able to offer you a discount for those that are looking to get one brand new. So hold off on that for the rangefinder. We'll have more information out on that in the next couple weeks. And the last question was, would you recommend shadowing before doing the actual rating? Definitely, that'll be part of your training. We will, as a trainee, you'll shadow a experienced person. That'll be after you do some initial training, but you'll definitely get to see what other people do before you get out there and actually get a sheet of your own. And there'll probably be multiple times. All right, I'm done talking. I'll open it up to anyone else that has questions.
If anyone else has any questions, you can just unmute yourself and ask them at this point. All right. So I don't think we have any questions, any more questions. So at this point, I think we'll be good for today. Just a reminder, again, starting this Thursday at 10 o'clock, will be the new rate or the experience kind of discussions that we'll be having, going through the book. So if you want to tune into those, come back to the same link at 10 o'clock. We'll be able to get you, and you'll at least be able to listen in and hear some of the things as you kind of explore through the book a little bit more. And then as well, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out whenever you get a chance. And then if there's, demand, we'll do some more live training. I'll do some more live training with you all in the upcoming weeks as we get ready for the season. So with that being said, thank you all for coming. I think we had a great turnout. We had nearly 40 at one point. So that was really great. And so thank you all for coming, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.